Well, hey everyone, welcome to arStudents Online. I'm super glad that you decided to join us, whether it's Friday or if you're watching this after the fact, welcome. And hey, if you've never been to arStudents before, if this is your first time watching any of our videos, seeing my face for the first time, well, I just want to say I'm super glad that you decided to jump in with us. My name is Lee. I'm the students director at Asher Ridge Church, and I'm really excited that we get to hang out this week. I've got two quick things before we get into our video for today. The first is that if you're a parent, if there's a parent sitting in the room, or students, if your parents aren't in the room, I want you to text them right now. Like, you could pull out your phone during church. I'm telling you, text them, watch the parent meeting online. All of our previous content is available on YouTube, on the Asher Ridge Church YouTube channel. So make sure your parents go back, watch the parents meeting from last week, and get all the up-to-date information about what arStudents has going for this summer, for this fall. It's a lot of really exciting stuff. And you can watch it too, because you want to know what's going on with your students' life, right? It's going to be awesome this fall. I'm really excited about what we've got going on. And then the second thing I want to tell you about is a little thing called Mother's Day. It's this Sunday. You have like 24 hours to get your ducks in a row if you're watching this on Friday to celebrate your mom on Sunday. Because of Mother's Day, we won't have arStudents online hangouts on Sunday. We'll be back with that next week, so don't worry, they're coming back. You don't have to worry about missing out on some community, some time hanging out together on a Sunday afternoon. As long as we can't meet in person, we're gonna keep doing these online hangouts. So with that, I want to transition us into our message this week. The woman you're going to hear talk, her name is Emily. She's someone that I've leaned on for wisdom over and over again. She's from Atlanta, where I'm from too, and she's an awesome human being. She's going to tell us a little bit about how important worship is, even though we can't worship physically together. And I know it's going to feel weird. At the end, we're going to have a little bit of a time of worship together. It's going to feel weird singing and doing worship on your own in your room. But I think that that's the really cool part about worship, is that it's between you and God. Not between everyone else and God, between you and God. So check this out, and I'll be back right afterwards to wrap things up.
What's up, Inside Out? If I haven't had the chance to meet you yet, my name is Emily Rue, and I work at North Point, and I am the programming and production director out there. And one of my favorite things about what I get to do is worship. I get to work with the band, I get to help pick out the songs and plan the worship sets. And if you're anything like me right now, maybe you are missing worshiping together. We can't gather at Inside Out because of the time that we're in, and I am missing that. I'm missing y'all, but I'm also really missing worship. Some of you out there maybe are not missing worship at all, right? Maybe you're in a funk, you're angry, you're upset, you're confused by this time, you feel alone in isolation, and the last thing on your mind is worshiping God. And I get that, right? There are some days that I wake up and I'm so excited because I look outside and I see the sun and I just want to thank God for the rest of the day. Other days I wake up, you can ask my roommates, and I am just agitated. I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm upset, I'm confused, and the last thing I want to do is worship God. But I think wherever you fall on that spectrum, whether you are worshiping God every day or you're not worshiping Him at all, I think it's okay, and I think it's understandable for the time that we're in. I think the truth of the matter is, when we are in dark times, when we're in hard times, when our circumstances aren't necessarily what we think they should be or aren't as good as we feel like they should be, the last thing we want to do is worship. In dark or hard times, we find it hard to worship God. But what do we do with that? Do we just put worship on a shelf and wait for our circumstances to get better? Do we wait for us to snap out of our funk and feel better or feel happy? I don't think that's the answer. And so today I want to look at some scripture that I think can help us in this time of isolation and quarantine and not being able to meet together in regards to worshiping God. So this week we're going to pick back up and we're going to continue looking at the life of Paul. And now we know Paul had a life full of hardships, right? He did not have it easy. He had some really difficult moments. And one specific moment that I want to look at today talks about this time that Paul was attacked by a crowd. He was beaten, and then he was thrown in jail without a trial. No questions were asked. There was no mercy. He was just thrown in jail after being attacked and beaten. So today I want to look at Acts chapter 16, verses 24 and 25. Verse 24 says, upon receiving such orders, he put them in the inner cell and fastened their feet in the stocks. Now I want to pause and I want to explain this verse. It says, upon receiving such orders. This is talking about the jailer or the guard that put Paul into jail, that threw Paul in jail. He was given strict orders, harsh orders, orders with no mercy to not take his eyes off of Paul, to put him in the jail cell. But not only that, it goes on to say he put them in the inner cell and fastened their feet in the stocks. So this is basically chaining Paul's feet to the ground in this jail cell. Not only is he in jail, but now he's stuck in one place in this cell. Verse 25 goes on to say, about midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the other prisoners were listening to them. Look at that. Even in darkness, literally and figuratively, literally because it's midnight, so it's dark outside, but figuratively as well, Paul is in a dark place. He's in a dark time. He's in jail. In the darkness, Paul still found a way to worship God. In this, Paul showed us that worship isn't just for the good times, but it's also for the bad times, for the hard times, the confusing times. Paul also showed us that we don't need a full band or a church building to worship God. Paul knew that in his darkness, in this moment, he needed to worship God because he was worthy of it, but because people around him needed the worship as well. You see, we worship God because he's good, he's faithful, and he loves us, and he deserves our praise. We worship God because we as humans are wired to worship. It's in our nature to worship something, and so we choose to worship God. Another reason we worship God is because it brings encouragement, not only to us, but to people around us. And so again, in verse 25, it says, as Paul and Silas are praying and singing hymns, the other prisoners were listening to them. See, worship isn't just encouragement for us, it's also encouragement for those around us. I think that's part of the reason why we at Inside Out love gathering together and singing together. Worship and singing is not just encouragement for us, it's encouragement for everyone else around us. And so while we can't do that, while we can't gather and sing together, we can still worship. And I think we can learn from Paul and figure out a way to worship in this time of isolation, worship in a time that looks different than what we're used to, but it's got to be personal. You have to figure out what works for you. You have to find a way to connect with your Heavenly Father through worship. So for you, maybe that's listening to Spotify playlists. Maybe it's going to YouTube and watching messages or listening to different podcasts. Maybe you connect to God through nature and you go for a run or you go on a hike and you thank God for his beautiful creation. Maybe you're a little bit more artistic and you worship God through art. Maybe you write or you draw or you paint or you play music. Whatever it is, we're all wired to worship God in our own personal way. And the truth of the matter is, worship is not about a group's response to God. It's not about Inside Out's response to God, but instead it's about your own response to God. So as you get ready to head to small groups, as you get ready to hop into your Zoom room, I want to leave you with a question and a challenge. How can you personally respond to God this week and find a way to worship him on your own?
Thanks so much, Emily. Those were some really, really good words, especially right now in the middle of all this when we can't worship together. I loved that Emily said that worship is less about what a group's response to God might be, but about your personal response to God. And we're out here, this is the King's Grant area that used to be a golf course or was supposed to be a golf course. This is the place that I like to come to get alone with God to worship. For me, it's some worship music, usually on my phone, just playing out loud and walking around these trails. I love getting the opportunity to worship God away from distractions. I found that if I'm at home, there's always something to distract me, whether it's video games or social media or Netflix, like binging The Office. I can't get away from that unless I'm actually out of the house. And so that's what it's like for me. But like Emily said, for you, it could be different. It could be something that you journal. It could be some artwork, some music that you actually play. It could just be as simple as listening to music like I do. But I still think it's really important that we figure out ways to worship God, even when we can't do it all together. And that's the really cool part, is that even though it is weird, even though it is kind of awkward to sing alone in your room for some people, some of y'all sing in the shower, it's normal, but for me, that's hard. And it's really exciting to know that God is still there in the middle of all of that, regardless of whether or not it feels awkward or normal or fun or weird, God's still there. And I love how Emily talked about how Paul, in the middle of his suffering, in the middle of his worst point, he chose to sing. He chose to worship God. And it brought encouragement to the people around him. That's pretty remarkable. And so I want to encourage y'all, figure out a way this week to worship God. Figure out what it takes to get that personal time with God, that one-on-one time with God, whether it's something on a video or in music, or if it's something totally on your own. I really hope that you figure out a way to get personal with God this week. And I've got one more thing that we're going to do here at the end. Back a while at Easter, Asher Ridge Church produced this video of Death Was Arrested with all of our band playing music in their own living rooms. And we're going to watch that again. We're going to spend a little bit of time worshiping together. We're going to spend a little bit of time singing together. Even though we can't see each other, we're all going to be worshiping together, and it's going to be really, really cool. So that's coming up here in just a second. But remember, no online hangouts this Sunday. It's Mother's Day. Celebrate your moms. Tell them you love them. Tell my mom that you love her too. Mom, if you're watching, I love you. And we're going to figure out how to do all of this together. Even though it's weird, even though it's hard, we're going to worship together anyways. I'd love to pray for you as we go to this time of worship. Hey God, thank you so much for everything around me right now. Thank you for the green grass and the trees and the birds chirping. God, thank you for your creation. Thank you for placing us in it and teaching us to worship by just looking around. God, thank you for giving us voices so that we can sing to you, so that we can raise up a holy noise just for you. And God, I pray that these students, these adults watching right now, will figure out a way to worship, figure out a way to find that personal connection with you. And God, just give me boldness, give me courage to continue to sing, even though I'm a bad singer and even though it's weird to sing alone. Help me continue to sing to you. And it's in your son.
Alone in my sorrow and dead in my sin, lost without hope and no place to begin. Your love made a way to let mercy come in. When death was arrested and my life began, and ash was redeemed, only beauty remains. And my orphan heart was given a name. My mourning grew quiet, my feet rose to dance. When death was arrested and my life began. Know your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new, now life begins with you. It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made me new, now life begins with you. Released from my chains, I'm a prisoner no more. My shame was a ransom you faithfully bore. He canceled my debt, he called me his friend. When death was arrested and my life began. Know your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new, now laid on a criminal's cross. And darkness rejoiced as though heaven had lost.